Hi everybody, it's Brandon. Okay, today I'm going to be showing you the priming for the Fluval 306. A lot of people have had problems with their pumps not priming at all, and I'm going to go through the entire priming process and every single part of the priming system to show you what I have set up and what works, and see how it is different from yours to hopefully troubleshoot yours so it can work again. So this is my Fluval. It is the 306. It is currently running. I just have everything hooked up to a bucket. So I'll put my camera here on a tripod and we'll get going here. Alright, we're going to start off with the intake and the out. Show you exactly what is going on with those. First, I'm going to turn the filter off. Okay, the output is pretty standard. It's going to be the Fluval, I don't even know what they call this, just the angle blower. It's pretty not necessarily important to the priming process at all. So I'm just going to take this off and just feed this part just straight into the bucket and call that good. The intake here, I have kind of a different setup than what comes with the filter. So this, let me show you here. I already have twigs and everything, which doesn't help. So this is how my intake is set up. So it sucks water from the bottom of the tank here and the top of the tank. This floats on the top of the water, getting the top surface oils and everything and sucking them into the filter too. Well, it comes in to the Fluval check ball. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull all this off. I'm going to set this up just as any other filter would be for this setup. It's going to be just like that. So that is how the Fluval comes directly. One of the big things for priming is the check ball. You can see mine is really gunked up with a lot of plants. So I'm going to take the check ball apart. I'm going to try to get it completely clear, get everything out of there. This does open if you're persistent. I can't remember how I did it last time. Okay, I think I took a screwdriver last time. There's a seam right between here. I think that's the seam. Okay, I was able to pry into here a little bit and start opening this check ball. And if you just kind of work it around, you'll be able to pull off, there we go, the top. Oh goodness, whole lot of awfulness in there. Okay. So these are the three pieces of the check ball. So what this does, now that it's nice and clean, put it back together. When water flows to the pump, it pulls the ball upward and lets water and everything else into the pump. Okay, I now have the check ball completely back together. So this is the tube it came with, and then the adapter to put it back onto the black hose. It's important to note that the check ball moves inside of here. So what this is for is back pressure for the priming. So when you prime, you basically are pushing pressure down and then back. So what happens is it'll let water in but not back out from the filter, and it pushes it out to here. It'll make more sense as we get more and more into the system here. So I'm going to put this back together as it was, then put that back on the tank here. Alright, a little bit of focusing there. So when I lift, so I'm going to do this kind of at the same time here. When I lift the primer assembly, you can see water is sucked in. Then when I push down, water can't go back down at all because this check ball only allows water up. So I'll pull up again and down. So as lift up, sucks water in, and you can see that water is coming in to the inlet side and air is coming out of the output side because it's making one whole loop around. So if your check ball is working fine and you're still not able to prime the system, what could be happening is you could have air leaking into your system through any of your connectors. If air is being sucked in to the top or bottoms of these things, then you'd probably eventually get it primed, but you'd see a lot of bubbles coming out of the output a lot, and it would make quite a lot of sounds and bubbling and always trying to catch up with itself. So if that happens, just push these together really good and make sure there's no air gaps. Back down to the filter here. I believe this one is now primed because I don't hear any more bubbles coming out. So I guess we could try it and see what happens here. Let me turn it on. It is still trying a little bit, so I'll give it 1 or 2 pumps, or 3. Try to get the air out of the system, and so it's sucking water in. Okay, and as you can hear, it's not really doing what it needs to be doing. Could be a couple different things, but what we're going to do is get into the filter itself here and see what's going on to make sure all the other priming things are good. So we're going to close off the aqua stop and we're going to open her up and make sure the aqua stop isn't leaking out of the side. Sure, it'll be wet on the bottom, but it shouldn't continue to release water that we're trying to get into the pump. Now the 306 is going to be tippy top full of water most times. So generally what I do is drain off some of the top, usually into my bathtub, and then I open it. A couple people have pointed out that in my previous videos I am kind of a doof and didn't realize that opening it is a lot easier than it seems. Pull these sides out, the bottoms come open. If you go back up and then push these inward, it'll latch downward, and then if you push down, it'll pull the whole assembly up off of the canister. Brilliant. Alright, now we are inside the 306. This is the impeller area, impeller cover. If you open that, have your impeller. And this side is your priming assembly. So, first thing you want to check is to make sure that the red flap is here, because that is very easy to lose, especially if you clean everything up and pull it off of there once. That little piece pops off pretty easy, and it's hard to remember to make sure to go back where it needs to be. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull this whole black part off. So just using a small screwdriver, I'm able to pull off this cap. So this red little flap controls most of your priming. Between this and the check valve, those two systems allow water to go one way and one way only, and that is exactly what you need. And that connects just to this little clip, just like that. So I'm going to set that aside. I'm going to show you inside of the primer assembly. All it is a cylinder and a plastic piston. And that is it. I have taken this off before and got into, or actually, let me show you how. Let's go all the way in. So with the knob, pull it up and very, very gently work it off of the shaft without breaking the shaft. So I find where the strip is there, or the slit, twist it just a little bit, kind of applying pressure that way, not the shaft itself that way, holding the shaft, but pushing this back a little bit, and it came right off. So that I'm going to set aside. I'm going to push this through a little bit more to pull out the primer piston. It's important to note that between the gray plastic in there and this black plastic up here, there is a rubber gasket, a tiny round rubber gasket between both of these pieces of plastic. It's held in there by these pieces of plastic, so you don't have to worry about that falling out at all, but it is in there. It's way, way in there, very, very tiny. Yeah. Here's the primer assembly, or the primer piston. I'm going to dry it off real fast here, make sure it doesn't have debris around it. This is a rubber I don't even know, I guess like a rubber skirt around this. So in the past I have taken my silicone grease and just done a very, very nice coat all the way around this. I can still feel it on there, so I believe this is still pretty good and ready to go. Inside, everything is pretty standard, just a cylinder, and that's I think, if you ever get in totally to the motor and want to go full in and pull this cover off, then you could take this white piece out of there too and make sure it's fine. But I could visually see that there's no debris, no dirtiness, no anything inside of that cylinder, so I'm fine. This is greased still, so I'm going to just feed it back through. If you do want to get clever too, you can put a dab of grease on the top of your shaft here to make sure that that gasket all the way inside of here, where's the hole, make sure the gasket all the way inside of there does get a little bit of grease to make sure it's airtight or watertight, some kind of tight. I'm going to push that back in. I'm going to hold it with my finger while I push on the cap. We're all done now. So I could hear that it's making an airtight connection and moving a lot of air in one direction. And that's good. So now I'm going to put on the cover again and making sure that the red flap is not only attached but clean. So this flap, I can actually see a little bit of buildup right in there. So I'm going to clean that out real nice and make sure that the flap itself is clean too. So now those are both nice and clean. I'll clip those back together and we're going to put that back onto the motor. Hi kitten. It should just snap back into place and we're good. Yeah, so that's it. So at this point, it's always a good idea to check your impeller, open everything up, make sure everything is decently clean and free flowing, and make sure your shaft is not broken. Once those break, all sorts of things can really go to hell, and it's quite problematic. The impeller cover, when you put it on, make sure that this side and this side are recessed all the way down so your ceramic shaft does pop through the little hole. I've seen a lot of these where it's curved a little bit because all people do is click this part in, but the top or the sides don't get recessed and it doesn't make a good connection. So, over explaining everything, but that's alright. We're going to go ahead and reinstall the motor head back onto the canister. So it's pretty easy. I'm going to set it there. Oh, while you have it off, make sure that your main gasket is greased and cleaned also. I almost forgot. So this is your main gasket. Mine is still pretty nice. It's still greased, but it is a little dirty. So I'm going to run through it with a towel. I'm going to double check here. I still feel a good amount of grease on there. So I think mine is still totally fine. I do keep a backup in all my supplies at all times, because if a gasket goes out on me, I want to have that pump up and running as soon as possible. And they're pretty easy and cheap to find online. So I'm going to set this back on, use my side flaps, pull these side ones out, down, all the way to grab underneath, and simply pull those up to recess the entire thing onto the pump. Then these lock into place. Reinstall the Aquastop. Nice and easy, shouldn't be struggling at all. And reopen. Now there's still a little bit of water inside of both of the lines, which is good. So we're gonna still reprime a little bit until it starts getting harder. Once it's harder like this, it means there's less and less air inside of it, and that's what you want. So I think that's pretty tough. So let's see what happens when we turn it back on. I'm gonna grab my camera here. We're gonna go freelancing. I'm gonna turn that on. It's gonna push out air bubbles, and I'm hearing, you can probably hear if I get close, give it a couple more pumps, starts getting smoother. So what this is doing is forcing out the air in the system. Give it a couple more pumps here. So every time I lift up, it pushes air out, and I push down, and it resets. So it's still working on getting a lot of that air out of there, but there we go. Oh yeah. So all the debris that I took out of the check ball is just going to go right back in, but hey, whatever. I'll clean it real good here in a second. So we are up and running with nice, good water again. And see the check ball there. So I'm going to put that down, let this run a second. You could hear that the pump calmed down a lot. At this point, you always want to visually inspect to look for any leaks or any problems in general. You'll hear a lot of bubbles and the system working itself out, but it should stop doing that quick. So it sounds like I have this finally pretty good. So, yeah, I think that's going to end it for this video. So I want to thank you guys so much for checking out my random awesomeness. Hit the like button in the bottom right to let me know that you're out there. And if this helped you, I would definitely like to know. Leave a comment saying thank you, or how it did help, or even how it didn't help. I really, really want to know kind of your opinion. So thank you all, and we will see you on the next video. Bye, guys.